last shot is called the Martini Shot, even by people who don't drink martinis.
Well, first of all, through God, all things are possible, so jot that down.
This town needs an enema.
That shit is the Mad Notes, written by God herself and handed down to the greatest band in the world.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live.
I deal with a lot of different film creators and stuff like that, and like I'm based in Texas. I'm not in Hollywood anymore. And one of the things that I think I hear from a lot of people is like, oh, they just don't make good movies anymore. And I'm like, that's really not true. They make great movies. You just aren't watching a lot of good movies. Because every time you go to the theater, you're watching a kids movie or a superhero movie, and people are on their phones during the movie. People talking during the movie. It's you're taking out a second mortgage to take your kids to the movie now. It's it's such a headache. And with VOD, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with how movies are putting films into theaters for just a few weeks and then you could get it at home. I know Quentin Tarantino had a big diatribe about this recently, so I'm curious your thoughts. Because for a movie like you, I actually think it's important to do that. It's important to give it its theatrical run, but also to release it at home so people get eyeballs on it. But when you're a big movie like, Wicked or something like that, like let it run its course and let people give people some time to not think about the movie anymore, let the movie release, and then have people start talking about it again. Like, I feel like that's kind of lost now. It's in the theater one day and the next day they can watch it at home. But I think for a movie like yours, that's actually where it's beneficial.
Yeah, totally. That it is. I think you hit the nail on the head. And yes, and I'm very conflicted in many ways because I wear both hats of the creative and also then the studio business perspective. In recent years, the barrier to entry has gotten dramatically lower in terms of filmmaking.
Right.
Which, from a filmmaking perspective, is beautiful in many ways. It's become more democratized.
Sure.
Like equipment is cheaper than ever.
Mm-hmm.
The internet has just made it easy to, get in contact with other people. Like 20 years ago, you would never have been able to find other like-minded people to send your script to or to get it on in front of an actor or whatever. The whole process has become democratized in the VOD space and everything. Unfortunately, the flip side of that is that it has hurt the economics of the business because it has created a huge amount of supply, whereas the demand is constant. Like I talk about this all the time. Everybody, because we at Briarcliff are also in a unique situation of being both a buyer and a seller.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to buy a movie to release in theaters. But then after the theatrical, we have to turn around and try to sell our SVOD rights, to a Netflix or to a Hulu or to whoever to license, we call it our pay one window or HBO, whatever. And so we're a buyer and a seller. So it's weird. It's a buyer's market right now, let me tell you, because, and I'm theorizing, but my view is, especially coming out of COVID when interest rates were low, there was a lot of money being thrown around by, a lot of hedge funds, people who made killing in other industries started entering Hollywood, and there was just a shit ton of independent films being made.
Yeah.
And what I always say is, like, the demand is constant. Like, the amount of people who watch movies and TV shows, thankfully it's never going away. That's great. Like, but it's not really going up or down either. Like, it's more or less going to be like this. And then in recent years, the supply went like this.
Yeah.
So of course, it's economics 101. Like the laws would dictate that, it's going to become a buyer's market, and the supply has outpaced the demand, which goes to what we were saying is it's so crowded. It makes it harder for any one thing to penetrate. It makes it harder for any one thing to break out and have economic success. So it's challenging.
Yeah.
But it's also beautiful from it's never been more accessible to other people, like you just said yourself, being in Texas, like somebody in Texas can easily make an independent film and get some real name actors in it, and so that's beautiful, but it has kind of messed with the economics of the business. So I'm conflicted myself.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, once the streaming game and then big companies like Amazon and things of that ilk got into the game, they're throwing huge budget at 6-episode TV shows nobody's watching. I mean, you know, some people watch them, some people don't, some people like them, some people don't. So it's honestly like, you know, I review a lot of stuff, and it's so hard to keep up with everything. It's like, I have to limit myself. I got 3 kids. Like I can't just
I don't envy you, man.
Yeah. I just can't be watching like, you know, 100 movies a week.
But I do appreciate you. Like,
yeah.
And that's why, you know, I did need to say, just tack on to what you said. Like, you know, I think you and people like you are a very, very important part of the new film media ecosystem in a way, and that's why I reached out. Like, I'm some genius for reaching out, but I do think it is a shortcoming of many people on the studio side of the business who don't recognize that. And again, I even at our own company, sometimes even I have frustrations because I'm like, man, it's like I do feel like there's a somewhat antiquated way of looking at media. And like, you know, I don't know if you're on Twitter or whatever,
Oh yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
you know, like discussing film on Twitter
Oh
and
yeah.
like film updates. And I'm like, those people are like driving the conversation online in a way that I don't think most like studio executives, just because they're by nature, they're older, they're not as online. They just don't really get it, and they don't really understand that like the value of like an Entertainment Weekly exclusive like debut of your clip has gone down dramatically in,
Yeah.
you know, in recent years, just in terms of the relevance that that holds. But like we were saying, like that's still what's in the movie marketing 101 playbook, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Whereas actually, if you were to go to a discussing film to launch that clip, like it might actually have much more reach.
Yeah.
And, you know, and YouTube channels like yours, like I think are the future of film media. And I think that everyone would be better off recognizing that, because that is how people are finding out about things nowadays. Like
Yeah.
moviegoers, like people who actually watch movies, those are the people we're all chasing in this business. They are watching YouTube channels like yours. They are not going on, you know, whatever, entertainmentweekly.com and looking up the new like films.